This year's Millionaire Lottery offers 10 incredible grand prize options, including 9 homes, 2.7 million tax-free cash. Get your tickets, millionairelottery.com.
Oh, Donnie's talking. He just never shuts up. I just sat back and watched the show. 45 minutes in front of a mirror, I banged it. I got it. I bang on. What I meant was I bang on. I got it.
Okay. Here he is, one half of the team. Donnie and Dolly, weekdays 10 to noon on Czech Television, or Friday regular and Canucks Insider, Mr. Rick Dhaliwal. How are you?
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
So when are they going to fire the coach?
Oh, boy. That's the million-dollar question, not only in Vancouver, but when you talk to people around the National Hockey League as well. I think we have to, first of all, always say this. Things are subject to change daily. Like what you hear today or the day before quickly can be outdated. But I was told this morning, not sure tonight's outcome, a loss, means that there's going to be a 9 a.m. press conference tomorrow morning. I was, again, told this morning, Jim Rutherford's a pretty patient guy. But when you hear names like Rick Tocchet and Andrew Burnett, I heard Tocchet's name last Saturday. Lots of hockey people were in town for the U17. And then, I called someone in New Jersey about Burnett and was told the Devils don't want any distractions. I don't think they're doing cartwheels about that rumor, by the way, guys. They're on an 11-game winning streak. Talking about someone leaving midseason is a distraction. He's under contract, and the clause in his contract that allows him to entertain outside interest for head coaching vacancies is geared for the offseason, I think, not the in-season. But it's kind of like if the Vancouver Canucks were on a 10-game winning streak and somebody asked to talk to one of their coaches, I don't think they'd be doing cartwheels, same kind of thing, right? But, you hear hockey people say it all the time. I would never hold you back from getting a better job, right? So you always hear that.
You know who's got a better record than the Devils? Rick Tocchet.
Who?
He's undefeated. Does he want to really get into this mess? Because it's not like he's inserting himself into a contender here.
Well, and the other thing I was told this week is any coach you're talking to is going to want a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10-year kind of plan. They're going to want to know if this team's going to have Bo Horvat on it. If this team is not going to have Bo Horvat on it, a coach is going to want to know. So any coach coming into Vancouver's going to do their due diligence, guys. And if I'm a coach that's talking to the Canucks, I want to know, is Bo Horvat here or is he not here? So, and obviously the management would have the answers to that. And by the way, on the Bo front, preference is still to sign him. But you guys know if a team calls with a great offer, the Canucks have to look at it. But I was kind of told that the first week of February is when the pressure point is, kind of be to trade Bo, right? So, it's a thing you're going to monitor. Teams call all the time. So it's certainly Bo Horvat's a big piece of the puzzle here.
Well, you say first week of February. Trade deadline is Friday, March 3rd. We know that Jim Rutherford has a pretty well-earned reputation as a guy who moves early. Now, granted, that is usually as a buyer, not a seller at trade deadline. Just getting back to last week, Ricky, where they go through Toronto and they don't meet with Morris, the agent there who's based in Mississauga and represents Bo. I'm beginning to wonder, how much of this, you say their preference is still to re-sign him. How much of this is Bo not wanting to re-sign? Is there any bit of this as Bo going, you know what, I may be done here, or at least I want to wait and see what the rest of this year brings before I'm willing to re-sign with the Vancouver Canucks, and if that means I'm traded, so be it. Anything?
I haven't heard that. I have not heard that Bo is stalling things. I have not heard that Bo is saying to his agent that, you know what, I don't want to go back to Vancouver. I certainly have not heard that. To answer your question, I still think that both sides want to get it done. But, they just gave JT Miller $8 million a year. That kicks in next year. So we know Bo's number is not in the 6s. Is probably not going to be in the 7s. So you have to ask yourself, you just gave JT 8. Can you do the same thing for Bo? So I keep hearing, that both sides want to get it done. But I have not heard that Bo doesn't want to re-sign in Vancouver or he's stalling talks or anything like that. I certainly have not heard that as of now.
Canucks need to get better on defense and on the right side of defense. And yet at the same time, upgrading on the right side is one way to do it. There might be value for Tyler Myers. There's been rumors and innuendo about Columbus, about Toronto, and Ottawa most recently. What are you hearing?
Okay, so first of all, I just want to say this. When people see on Twitter that one team is scouting another team, I mean, only in this market do people go nuts. Pro scouts, that's their job, to go to every game in the National Hockey League has scouts at it. You know what I mean? But you don't see 500 million trades a day, right? So let me just say this. I don't get the sense there's a ton of trade talk with the Canucks right now. Should pick up at the 2025 game mark. There was a rumor that a Canucks player shot down a trade to Ottawa last week. I have 100% confirmed that no player on the Canucks roster shot down a trade to Ottawa. Some thought it was Tyler Myers. His agent, J.P. Barry, said quite frankly to me yesterday, that is not true. And I backed it up with 100% it was not Myers. So I don't even think the Canucks and Ottawa were close on a deal. But what happens is, and especially in this market, Ottawa's following Vancouver on their road trip, and all of a sudden the Canucks and Ottawa are going to have a trade. It didn't materialize. So, Myers is going to be interesting. Our team's going to call on him. Of course they are. Would the Canucks? We've been saying a Myers trade for how long in this market, right? It's been projected for a while. I think that cap space, is interesting if you can move it. If you can't, then you know what? You got a player that plays 20 plus minutes for you every single night. Let me say this too on the trade front. Luke Schenn's going to be the player that gets the most calls in Vancouver. You better take that to the bank. Low cap hit, great leader. He would be a perfect fit on a playoff-bound team that, is looking for that type of guy.
And the more they use him too, Ricky, they're using him, in late, tight games. I mean, that shows that he's more than just a seventh guy on a contender. He can play a sixth role. You
nailed it. And guys, leadership. He sticks up for his teammates. He's when I look back at the Kevin Bieksa speech on culture, I can't stop to think about Luke Schenn. He's exactly what you need more of in a dressing room. He's just a great. Okay, so I don't get he's a UFA. I don't get the sense there's a lot of urgency right now to re-sign Luke Schenn, but this is a player that the club, the Canucks, absolutely have a ton of respect for. So it's going to be interesting. Two things are going to happen. At some point, they're going to get to his agent and possibly talk about an extension, or you know what? They're just going to move this guy who's going to have a lot of teams after him. He had a lot of teams last year after him, guys. Like people don't know that last year's trade deadline, Canucks made a very wise decision to keep him for culture, dressing room, team reasons. He had a lot of calls last year, guys. And this year, his play is not gone unnoticed, but the club absolutely. Boudreau raves about him. Rutherford raves about him. Alvin raves about him. He's a, and it's kind of cool that Luke Schenn has resurrected his career in Vancouver. I'm going to tell you guys a quick story. Luke Schenn this goes back to Travis Green. Luke Schenn was not getting in the lineup, and Luke Schenn was just pretty close to being sent to Utica. It was trade deadline day, and he had just talked to Travis Green about possibly, Travis told him, he said, look, I'm having a tough time getting you in the lineup. And all of a sudden, they traded Gudbranson. And they traded Gudbranson, and boom, Luke got in the lineup. And, he started playing with it's just about timing and stuff that happens. And then when he signed with Tampa Bay, guys, the preference was to sign in Vancouver. But I remember his agent telling me at the time that the Canucks were just kind of hemming and hawing a lot, and he kind of got away to Tampa Bay. But good for him because he won a couple of Stanley Cups. But just a really good teammate, a good player, the whole 9 yards. There's a lot to like about Luke Schenn.
He's even got some points this year, guys. Like he's even done. Yeah. What do you make? Because I've seen Elliot Friedman has talked about it now. I believe Saravelli had it first, but connecting Horvat with the Columbus Blue Jackets, who certainly could use a center, but by the same token would need to re-sign him. You hearing anything between Columbus and Vancouver?
Well, I've been told there's not a ton of calls on Bo right now, but there are going to be teams. I said last week that one team had reached out about Demko. I mean, look, I'm just going to tell you guys, look, it's not a huge story that teams are reaching out on some of the Canuck better players. I'm sure the Canucks are reaching out on other teams' better players. It's just look where the Canucks are, guy. I think they're 31st in the NHL. I think they're the only team behind them is the only team they're ahead of is the Ducks right now. So you could see teams calling on Horvat. You could see teams calling on some of their better players right now, but I'm going to stick to my guns here. I think at the 20-25 game mark, you'll see a little bit more activity. But I haven't. I understand Columbus called, but I haven't done too. I can tell you something right now. If Columbus wants to re-sign Bo Horvat first, I don't think that conversation's taken place with his agent yet.
No, and of course would have to involve the Canucks as well and permission and all that.
For sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Aidan McDonough, the collegian at Northeastern who was going to be a Vancouver Canuck, then decided to go back. Now there's the worry that he may become a free agent, not sign with the Vancouver Canucks. You've got a tidbit there, Rick.
Well, you should know, before we logged on, I said, hey, Rick, I had somebody tell me there's no chance Aidan McDonough is signing with the Vancouver Canucks, and I was nearly harmed even through the internet by first saying that. Rick was like adamant. He almost took my head off.
Hey, whoever told you that probably got into my stock of Crown Royal. Let me say this. One question I get asked a lot about is Aidan McDonough. Will he re-sign or become a free agent this summer? He's off to a good start, guys, in Northeastern, 16 points, 12 games. It's early. Things can change, but people ask, so you got to do your due diligence. I've talked to a few people. I still get the feeling the goal is to sign in Vancouver. If McDonough looks at the Canucks depth chart at forward and what's in Abbotsford, why wouldn't he sign here, guys? You're not going to pick a team, the Stanley Cup champions, let's put it this way. You got a chance to sign with a team that's got no depth at the forward position in Abbotsford or the Stanley Cup champs. Which one are you taking? So, why wouldn't he sign in Vancouver? That is the selling point for the Canucks. Teams at the bottom of the standings get to sell opportunity. They get to sell hope a whole lot more than the teams at the top. So we talked with McDonough the day after he elected not to sign last year on Donnie and Dolly, and he clearly said the goal was to sign in Vancouver. Time will tell. Things can happen. But if you're asking me right now, I still have not heard anything negative about McDonough and not signing in Vancouver. So take that for what it's worth. But I've talked to people, and people ask me to look into it, and I still get the feeling that, you know what, signing in Vancouver is the goal.
On his career best points per game pace, he is 23 as of last week, so he's getting on. It would be you'd be incumbent upon a player of that age, guys, to jump into the lineup and be a contributor almost from the get-go, because there's not a lot of time.
Yeah, and guys, he's Jack Rathbone's best friend. You know, Rathbone and McDonough are best friends. Guys, Dermott is close to returning, and that's going to mean 9 healthy D in Vancouver. Does that mean Rathbone gets sent to Abbotsford?
I would think so.
I was told the Canucks still believe in Rathbone, but the coach is just not putting him in.
Yeah, he's waiver exempt, Ricky. When he does play, it's 15 and a half minutes. So
do you think the agent cares if he's waiver exempt, Matt? The agent doesn't care. If he's good enough, put him in and play. I understand your comment about waiver exempt, but I'm just saying, when I look at defensemen...
Well, you tell the agent that being waiver exempt is usually a good indicator of who stays and who goes. And you further tell the agent, I don't give a damn what he thinks or what he feels. I'm looking at the Vancouver Canucks depth chart. I see Jack Rathbone not being used. When he is being used, he's being used for very light duty. And he's young enough that the minutes in Abbotsford mean more to him than it would to a Riley Stillman or somebody else.
I'm sure player and agent both want to see what the next coach thinks of Jack.
Well, I think absolutely.
Well, and And another young player that I'm going to bring up that would, is a Hoglander. I worry about him. 6 minutes in the last game. And I worry about where his I see the Sedin twins working with Hoglander at practice yesterday. I worry about that kid because every kid just wants confidence and they just want hope and an opportunity in a team that believes in them. And sometimes players, don't get the hope and opportunity and the belief, until 2 or 3 teams down the road. But I'm just saying those two are the kids that I think right now, Rathbone and Hoglander, that I think, look, the Canucks, again, Travis Green never played Cole Lynn. Travis Green never played Gadjevich, even when the Canucks were 29th overall, right? But are we going through this again?
Willie, too. Desjardins too. You remember that, Rick? Desjardins even refused to play the hopefuls.
So,
it was crazy.
So I hope that Hoglander and Rathbone are not the Lyndon Gadjevich, because if you can't play these guys when you're 30th in the NHL standings, when are you going to play them?
Well, and Danila Klimovich is having trouble getting ice time in Abbotsford, too.
Well, hold it a second.
You tell me.
Blake, Klimovich is 19. You guys all know he was 18 last year, the youngest player in the American Hockey League. He's playing in the men's league. He could easily be in junior scoring 50 goals a year, right? He could easily be, and talking about young kids and draft picks, Lekara-Maki's off to a slow start in Sweden. Yeah. 1 goal. I talked to his general manager yesterday, and he just said, yeah, you know what? He's coming around slow, but he believes in him. And so, but it's upon the Vancouver Canucks to develop these players like Hoglander, Rathbone, Lekara-Maki, and Klimovich. It's their job. It's why they have a player development program. And but with Lekara-Maki and with Klimovich, they're very young. With Rathbone and Hoglander, they're getting up there in age, still young, but they're in their 20s. And I worry about their confidence. That's the biggest thing.
Buddy, I hear you crumpling up papers, shuffling papers. We'll let you get on your way, get to that very important date you have with Crown Royal later this afternoon. So I appreciate
that piece of paper had Blake's an idiot on it.
Well, that means that you're crumpling it up. That means that you no longer think that.
Right? No. Hey, where's Patterson last week? Last week I had so much fun in the show because Blake wasn't here and Patterson was. I love Patterson. He's a good guy. Care.
Matt challenges you. You tell the agent, Matt was saying just minutes ago. All that flies right by you. No grudges held.
What do you mean?
Nothing.
What do you mean?
Oh my God.
He didn't call me out. No, hey, don't tell me waiver exempt is okay to use as an excuse to send Rathbone down.
I think Matt was chiding you. I think he was.
I think he was taking a shot at the agent. But anyways, they do believe in him. Rathbone and Hoglander both management, but it's upon them to get in the lineup and get out of, I would say, Bruce's doghouse and get it back onto the ice.
You're beautiful. Until next Friday. Thank you, Ricky. Pretty Ricky.
Adios, amigos.